Yeah.
The first time.
It fits.
So is that cotton?
You can always take this one out,
Well, I got,
right?
Yeah, they haven't got the money yet.
No.
Don't give me the
yeah.
money.
Well, see, I.
Hey, Jody,
I went to,
so we're just gonna take your guys' new envelope out.
Take
the what?
The
Your guys' new envelope out.
Oh, okay.
Something that I really like.
The dead
So I
one?
bought
It's one
15.
basically up to tell
So I
that
still have
here?
just a few left.
I left it at home because
Oh,
I figured
okay.
it was gonna
Yeah.
rain,
But you
and I
can't
was just
find
like,
that.
I don't want it sitting in the truck or your truck all day. Had I known you guys weren't gonna be in the morning, I would have just brought it, swapped it over, and you guys would
Yeah.
have took it home. But I didn't know. I thought you guys were staying here all day. So I was like, if it rains, there's no rain bag for it. So
Well, we can figure out, how to maybe just meet you at home before you pack up for tonight. If tonight happens.
I could. Where are you? Where are you guys at?
Well, I brought the car, so I don't have access.
Well, I was gonna just load it on the lift gate for the glow tonight.
Okay, because, Kate's in Santa Fe right now, she can come down and meet somewhere.
Yeah, she.
Your house or something.
I asked her, I was like, are you, she's like, are you near the glow? And I said, yes. She's like, okay, I'll just grab it from there.
Okay.
Did everybody's name in the back of the car? In the back seat.
And it's a 77, right? No.
80.
That looks like how small is
It's a
it's
90.
a sideways mitten.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a 90.
It's smaller.
I mean, it's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit smaller in the back. With a scoop on it, or.
And then.
It actually did fit in the bag a little bit better. That thing was always difficult to get in there.
Oh, yeah, nice.
They don't have fences around their fields in Austria,
Oh.
which is really nice.
Isn't that why they have the bells on the ground or something? There's
Okay,
somewhere
which
there's
map
bells
did you
on.
select? We were flying in, they kept them inside of a compound.
You can select either.
Yeah, so they were,
Well,
it was
we'll go
mostly
through.
just
Select one if
clocks.
you can't get it
Yeah.
to work, then I'll go through
Nice
that.
for retrieving your.
Yours just looked a little bit clearer than.
Yeah.
I had a different one loaded up right here.
Maybe on the east side of the building.
Oh,
Clear on the west.
No, well, you can't see.
So it's not.
Pretty well on this side of the roof.
You can use that for charging.
That's one tiny piece of the map you're just doing.
You sent us an email? Like you sent an email with the map?
Yes.
Well, with all the, yeah, you get the entire Dropbox.
Yeah.
I don't know if mine's.
Oh, it's hailing at Jane's house. What a fun storm we're getting.
Tornadoes and hammers,
Right now?
So-
Right now? I'm not
and then tomorrow morning, they send, in Hammond Springs.
you'll get about like 30 seconds
So
of
I think
touchdown if anything.
That's good, typical spot there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Discovery flight. We would have flown down to Rio Grande, so.
Oh. But it was too windy, huh? Whoa, that's
It's not
wild.
thunderstorm will impact cell centers and fall and Rosetta County.
So, Mark, last week back.
Up to 50
Yeah.
in any size scale.
Yeah, yeah. He's the one that told us this, right?
Yeah.
So location impacted
So
include
a lot of paper, right?
Yes.
You all set?
He needs help
Every,
his
like,
mom's store.
1 mile or what?
Well, this is down the.
Either I loaded this wrong or it's not.
Okay.
You should be getting it. There's one that's a grid.
Whoa. Well, maybe that's what it.
Wow.
Actually, we wanna go to.
Oh,
I'm sorry for touching it.
No, not really.
Well,
And
sidewalks all the way around.
Don't need PCs, don't need to land there anyways.
No, go down. So you wanna do.
How was the flying area over there?
More.
It was pretty awesome. Very hilly and valley. It's not necessarily. And sometimes it's like variable, but each valley can kind of give you a different flow. So as you pop, yeah, it like you'll be going this, east in this one, but then as you pop down in the next one, now it takes you south. It could be tricky if you weren't, you were paying attention.
I mean, obviously, the
Not the heart rate
pretty well.
Zavada's very good at adapting.
Yeah, it takes a minute. It does.
Yeah.
Okay, come up. Okay, perfect, that's fine, good there. You don't need to do anything at this point, now you need to open up Aussie.
These are Aussie setup.
So once it's in your system, it's there, so it'll talk through it, I think it won't show connected until you actually have Aussie.
So it is raining now, if anybody has anything needing covered.
So just go ahead and void that.
Alright, we're just under 1 o'clock, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Just still eating, keep eating. So for this, we're gonna go through some Aussie setup, and I'm gonna pull up a task sheet that was flown during the Austria-Styrian Regional Championship just recently. I think it's a pretty good example of a fairly complex task sheet that you could potentially not, you might not see the exact string, but it'll get you thinking in the right direction about like what you'll see at the higher levels of competition. So first to set up the map. So like right now, I'm using the internet maps for Aussie, which I use. It's very nice. You can have it switch between satellite views. So this will pull up all the satellite tiles, and you can go through and cache all these. As you just have to zoom in, go and actually load each tile to do that. If you want more information on that, I don't really want to go too deep into that one. I have a video up that goes over that pretty much and shows how to set all that up and weird hiccups that you can run into. Videos on Baggy's House. It's either YouTube or Facebook.
Zurich,
Yes.
is anybody getting the map to load? Has anybody got? Okay.
I just loaded it, so
Okay.
I'm gonna go through that. So
Okay.
hopefully
Sorry.
we do the same steps. Oh shit. There's the charger.
Here, you can use this. Here, we got it.
It's right here, sir. There.
I think this is mine. It's fine. It's fine. All right. Crisis averted. Alright, so you all should have the map file. So you just go to load map file, and
Zurich,
yes,
I'm using a local map.
which local map?
I have my GPS and I'm using my,
Oh, but it's not gonna work because she's not going to Austria.
but if you have coordinates and I'm gonna set up targets, isn't that?
They'll, you
Because I don't have-
you could set up the targets
I
where.
don't have email on this laptop.
Okay, gotcha. You could put the coordinates
It's
wherever.
the mechanism of, yeah, to making sure it's accurate.
It just might end up looking a little wonky, but you can get kind of the general idea.
Yeah.
So go to wherever you have saved the maps. for a .map file. There's a satellite hybrid, and then there's also the topographic. I've noticed that a fair amount of people are going with the topographic maps nowadays. I think there could be some advantages, so you can see, like I was just talking about, the valleys and stuff, and the hills, so you can take advantage of those sort of orographic features. So, I'm going to open up the satellite map. That opens this up, and bada bing, bada boom. Map is loaded. Is that not working for anyone? It's not working for you? What?
Looking at it.
We just recently got a new one because I cracked the other one. Got it? Sean, you good? Alright. Anyone else? Mike?
Further.
Alright. So that loads up your map file. You used to have to do a bunch of calibrations and stuff like that. Sean has a really good video about how to do that if you ever do need to. I feel like most events these days are providing the map file. So really you just need to load up the map file. It should already be set up with the correct coordinates. So whenever you pull it up in the GPS, it'll...
It's already pre-calibrated per se.
Yeah, correct. And then you can also use the internet maps. And if you use the internet maps, that will pretty much just work. But then you can't use the topographic features of some maps, which people like. So now we need to get some of the waypoints in, so like PZs, things like that. So you're going to go to load waypoints from file, and I'll show a sort of a gotcha with Aussie here in a second. So you're going to go back to where you have your files. And I'm going to select, first I'm going to just do primary waypoints. So that gives me the CLA, which is this green one here, the competition center, which is just off to the side. Here's a yellow PZ, here's a red PZ. If we zoom out, it has the competition area, and then this blue over here is a change in the blue PZ zone. So I think it was slightly lower over in that area. So that gets those. Here's the gotcha. So if you try to load additional waypoints, because either you've created them yourself, if you go to load waypoints from file, and now let's do those ones. So I get all of these waypoints, but I've lost all of my other waypoints. That's slightly annoying. So what you have to do is, instead of load waypoints from file, because essentially you're telling Aussie, load only this waypoints file, you have to go to append waypoints from file. So you go to append, and now let's reselect the primary. Now I have all of them. And then if you want to actually view your individual waypoints, there's the option up here to show your waypoint list, and you can actually see the full list. So if you wanted to delete one, or if you need to change it for whatever reason, so let's say PZ30 changes to a red area instead of a yellow PZ. You can go in here, change the description, PZ30, change the background color to red, save it, and now it's a red PZ. So, and then you have that perimeter around there as well, and you know where to fly. Questions on that?
So that perimeter is just automatic that size?
That perimeter,
Whatever.
it's whatever is set on the waypoint. So you can go into here, and where is it? Proximity distance. So you can set the distance here. So if I set this to 500 meters, then you see the ring gets a little bit bigger versus these ones.
Is that like a radius?
Yeah, it's just a radius. Alrighty. Everyone good with the map setup? That's pretty much it with map setup. Like, it's pretty straightforward to actually, I guess I could actually go through. Yeah.
So that's for PZs based on an actual point, but like when we have PZs, kind of like our PZs are actually like shape based.
Yep.
That's a different file, right? They're plot
Yes.
files.
Those would be plot files. Here I can. I'll load one of my. So for that one, you'd go to load routes from file. Or actually, what I would suggest is, I always do that. Load track from file multi, because that'll let you load multiple of them. So it's the same problem as the append load.
Yeah, because I noticed that all these PZs are just based around like an actual point instead
Yeah.
of like our PZs are like, oh, we have some weird freaking
Yeah.
shape that has to actually
So
be built.
this one has the blue PZ and the red, or the competition area. Which is those ones that, yeah. So we'll zoom out.
So there.
And up here, you have show hide track control. That will show you, but it's not real nice on where it orders them. Oh, maybe those are just baked into the other maps now. Let's see what happens when I open them. Alright, so if you noticed it sort of flashed differently for a second there, where it loaded. I'll go to this. Here's that track file. So if you wanted to, like, if it's the wrong color, or if you're loading a KML file or a GPX file in as a plot, or if you can load a GPX or a KML, it'll get saved into here. You can then export it as a .plt, which Aussie works with. KMLs, I think, I'm trying to remember, I don't remember if they actually retain their colors or not. They're supposed to. I think KMLs retain their colors, GPXs I don't think retains colors. Or vice versa, one or the other. But you can open up the track, come in here, the properties, and change the line color to green or whatever suits your fancy. And then close it, and it's good to go. And then you can save those basically the same way. Go to save routes to file, save waypoints to file. So typically at an event that whenever I'm going to an event, I'm going to load up all of my waypoints, all of my tracks. I'm going to save all of the waypoints that I'm concerned about for like an initial flight to one file. So I don't have to worry about going and selecting a bunch of different ones. I just have to load that one.
You ever use the project file way?
That's what I was just about to get into. So the other thing that I will do, there's two separate methods. Both have sort of their pros and cons. I tend to use the project manager. You can get to that through, is it under map?
Or maybe options.
Oh, options. Options project manager, I've added it. You can customize the whole toolbar. I've added it to here, so I can just click on it. So once everything's loaded in the way that I want it, I open up the project manager, I click on the little icon here, and I create a new project from the current map. That pulls everything in that I have, and now I can save that project file to wherever you want. So Austria, I save it. Now that's saved. I could go and just load that automatically the next time I open up Aussie Explorer, because it probably shouldn't save all of these. And close this down. So with the project manager, while I'm waiting for this to close, if I open it up again, it'll probably have everything white. But with the project manager, there's an option to say auto load this project at start. So you can check that, and then every time you open up Aussie Explorer, it'll pull that up automatically for you. Close that. here, upload project, Austria, that's not even working, so, cool again. Let's, waypoints. And this is kind of just the fight that you end up having to do with Aussie occasionally, where you just need to resave things multiple times. So, keep that checked, and then, for me, that covers me for the competition, and I'm usually good to go. What's inside?
I'm not getting GPS. But just think about it, I'm not for like 2 minutes, that's why I'm.
Thank you. The other option that you can do, which, so the project manager, if you have a bunch of track files that have to load, it can, when you initially start Aussie Explorer, it can take a minute to actually draw all of those onto the screen, because it's having to figure out where the points are and draw a line in between them. You can make that a little bit faster. If you, you'll hear most people call it baking it into your map. I don't really do this too often, but it tends to be a little bit faster. So that's check calibration. Yeah, so you go to check calibration, and then that opens up this little menu. You go to options, and then in here you can select whatever plots, waypoints, things like that, and it's another way to basically auto-load those into your map. Whenever it opens up, it'll open all that up a lot faster. It doesn't have to draw them, it caches them in a way that it can do it much faster. It can kind of get unwieldy if you have a bunch, but if you can consolidate everything, it becomes a lot easier. It then isn't as easy to edit though, so if say a yellow PZ turns into no PZ, you can land there again. You either have to just put another waypoint over there to let yourself know it's a green area now, or it's available, or redo the whole process of generating it without that waypoint, reloading and everything. Alright. That's sweet. Thank you. Oh, actually, that's not going to work at all, because
We're not in Austria.
yeah, because I'm not in Austria, so that's not going to be useful. There's a simulator. I never use it, so I don't remember where it is. Well, oh well.
You can do the enemy simulator, can't you?
Yeah, I don't remember where that is.
Right there. Yeah, Alt S.
Oh, yeah, there. But, I don't think I had something to show that. Whatever. Alright. That's that. Any questions on setting up Aussie and any of that? I think for a lot of people it seems overwhelming. Not to say that it's not, but it's a few steps. Once you get those down, it's the same thing every time you're doing it. I kind of have to remember how to do it every season, but I'll go in for the first event or before the first event and monkey around with it and flex those muscles again so that I get familiar. So now, let's go to Watch Me Fly, and we're going to pull up a fun task sheet. Yeah, that's one I think. Yeah, here we go. So, lots of diagrams. So, he has a minimum distance double drop, a maximum distance double drop, and both of these are electronic only, sort of. So the minimum distance double drop is electronic only. It's 2 logger markers. The maximum distance double drop is area A and area B for a marker drop. Or, so area A is your first mark, area B is your second mark. So area A is only valid within the circle intersections from the previous task. So that's these ones right here. And then area B can be on the grass of the judge declared goal, or a logger marker before before the easting line 2427. So you will end up drawing a line, and if you made a mark before that, you would get that as a valid maximum distance. But if you went a little bit further and got a baggie into the field, you got slightly more distance. So as long as you did the marker drop, or the logger drop, then you were good. Then there was a watership down. Watership down is very similar to a hare and hound. The difference is that, you're gonna usually, actually I think this was just a watership down is gonna start in the middle of the task string usually. A hare and hound is usually gonna be like from a CLA or whatever, so you're gonna have to go chase after them from there. Fly on, and there was a lot of weirdness that you had to do with these, with minimums and maximums, and how many times you could declare. So this fly on, you had to declare it in logger goal 1. You got a max of 2 valid declarations, and you could only declare inside a radius of 2 kilometers of 758.2529, which is, that's right, that was just a point. So it was this circle that he had just north of the area. And we'll once we draw it on, it starts to make a little bit more sense. And then you could declare any coordinate. It had to be at least 500 foot higher or lower than your declaration point. So you can't just, a lot of EDs have started doing things like that, because then you can't just sit in a layer, declare a point out in the distance, and then just fly straight to it. You have to declare a point that's above or below you, so that you have to change your altitude, which potentially changes your direction. So next fly on, logger goal 2, you can max to 2 valid declarations. So same as the other one. What that means is you get, it's not like we were talking about on the other task sheet where you could declare it as many times as you wanted to. You only get 2 chances at this one. So this one maybe is a little bit more likely to not make a declaration before takeoff, especially on this task sheet because it was a really far distance. So by the time you get over there, things could have changed. And so you might want to keep one of those in your both of them in your pocket so that you can utilize both of them. Minimum and maximum distances between declaration point and goal, minimum 2K, minimum maximum between declared goal and any goal set by the director, 2K. So now let's get into actually building this. So for the minimum distance double drop, we need the triangles. He's provided the coordinates here. So I'm going to go to Tools, Scoring Areas, and it has, the Scoring Areas has a nice feature where you can do snap to grid. So where you're clicking here, I changed that shit, hold on. I was trying to look at something and I changed my, the datum that my map uses, and so everything's all janky now. This is probably even more advanced than I would intend for this. The map datum, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the map they use to figure out where all your points are supposed to go. most things that I've seen will use WGS 84, especially in the States. I don't think I've ever seen it change. But yeah, that'll be defined in the rule books, usually in the first, in section 2. That's usually where a lot of the event-specific things are defined. So meeting times, blue PZs, ballot areas, all that jazz. This doesn't work again, then I'm just gonna go and we'll figure it out. I'll still be able to get the rough shapes of things. Alright. We're just gonna draw it. So let's there. This one there. And 2 seconds. So this will make it a little bit easier for me to, I don't have to bounce back and forth between windows. I just have one. Oftentimes I'll do this with either a phone or a tablet or something, or if I have a physical task sheet, then I'll do it that way. But if all I have is the computer in front of me, this is a handy way to do it, because it just put them off to the sides. So we need to go to 83 and 17. So I'm looking at these. That tells me on our 4x4s. So with this one, we said 8,300 by 1,700 on the this little piece right here. I'm looking at 83. I'm looking for 8313. It's just that one number. But what I'm doing is shaving off even more numbers with that. So I know that this coordinate right here is 8,300, 1,300. This one is 8,500 and 1,300. That makes sense? 17. So now we can start drawing. You click on the map, and then the next one is 16. So I know that my 16 is down here, and with the snap to grid, it'll draw the line, and then I need to go over 84, 16 to here, and then I need to go back to 83, 17. That gives me my triangle. I need to stop drawing, and now I'll start drawing again. And I'm going to make one at 84, 17, 84, 16. I'm basically, for this one, I'm going to make a square, which that's not what we want, right? We want this diamond shape, but I'll get there. So stop drawing, start drawing. For this one, we want 84, 18, 85, 17, 85, 18, oops, and to there. So now we have the rough shape of what we're going for there. So now I'm going to this one. I'm going to open up the track points, open this one up, and not going to work. There it is. Show individual track points in the track control screen. So now I have little dots on here, which let me pick the specific points now that I've set up for that track. I'm going to click on one of those, properties, edit the position, and now I can actually put in the easting and northing that he's provided here. So it's 8, 4, 3, 5. And I need to add.
Just roughed it in.
Yes.
Like grid.
get rid of the right one, because that's gonna be a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 6, 3, 5. Add your 0 back, save it, oh, and I'm touching the wrong one. Crap. On that sheet. I'm gonna do that one for now. Oh, that wasn't the right one. That's why. Alright, so property, edit position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it should be 8. 4, 6, 0, 0. And then 1, 6, 6, 0, and 0. Oh. That's fine. Alright, let's assume that.
Where is track point properties coming from?
So I'm right clicking on
Okay.
the track point after I show it
Yep.
all, got it, and then I go to properties. Alright, we're gonna do this. We're gonna pretend that the shape is exactly what I want it to be. So that I can get on that sheet.
Perfect.
So, there's a diamond. It's so beautiful. And we have triangle. When you stop drawing, it'll close it up for you. So you stop drawing, and I get the triangle. Alright, we have our triangles for the first scoring area. This is the kind of stuff that, like, you'd want to do beforehand and get used to doing, just drawing areas so that you can do that faster. And usually your data wouldn't be screwed up, so you wouldn't be getting wacky shapes. So the next one, we need areas A and B for these circles. So we'll go to here. We are going to go to Tools, Waypoint Tools. We're going to create a new waypoint, and we'll call this R1. The name doesn't matter, it can be whatever you want, just whatever naming scheme you decide. I'm calling this R1 because it's radius 1. It is at the coordinates of 8,000 and 2,000 for the 4x4. And then you have the two options, make waypoint or pick on map. For this one, I don't want to pick it, I'm already putting in those coordinates of the 4x4, so I click make waypoint, and it's created it right there. So then we'll go to R2, 81, 2130, make waypoint. So now I have my two waypoints here. I'm done with waypoint tools for now. And we'll go to task rings. Get rid of those. The color can be whatever you decide, whatever's going to work for you. So I
Is that
select.
an Aussie target?
Yes, that's Aussie target. So most of the stuff that you're doing is going to be an Aussie target. I guess
It's overlaid on the Aussie.
yeah, it's just it's working through the Aussie Explorer APIs to draw things in there. So this one, typically I will. For this one, it doesn't matter because it's not going to move. But like if you have to, for the other ones that are the fly-ons that and you need to worry about spacing, you'll probably want to make sure that you have the follow waypoint on, and you have to keep task rings open in order for it to work, but whenever you move that waypoint, it will, it'll follow along with the rings.
You have to be in the right task.
Yes.
That's what I was saying, but I figured out from the videos. I was like, it's not following anymore.
Yeah,
That's
so
a really big point.
now you have to, you can't just set rings, so if I did this, and I stayed on task 1, and I tried to go to the next waypoint, and I draw it, it's gonna move over to that one, and not be on the other one anymore. So I have to go to task 2, add a 1 there, select my waypoint, and draw my ring.
So the definition of the ring task number has nothing to do with the tasks on your sheet or anything else. It's just whatever you assign them to. I find it easiest to assign it in order so that you know which one, if you have to go back and adjust one, you know which one you put it on.
Yes, yeah. That's what I mean, is like, do some naming scheme that works for you. So like, whenever, in a second, we'll get to the actual JDG, and I have a whole thing that I do with mine to make it easier for me to get to, and like gives me information inside of it. So there we go for that. That's our circles. Now we need to get this area. Oh, we also need the northern, or the line. So we're gonna go back to scoring areas, and we need we need a northern line, east-west, 2, 4, 2, 7, and draw and add. Very similar to what I was talking about before, where draw is going to draw it and erase any other lines that you have. So there's that. If I wanted to add a second one, because sometimes you'll have multiple lines, if I just click draw, it moves that line. If I click add, it keeps both of them. 2, 4, 2, 7. Alright. So now we got that line, and we need the waypoint for the judge. So for this, my naming scheme, I always start with an exclamation mark, which is a weird thing, but it's so if you sort the list of waypoints, it makes sure an exclamation mark is always going to be greater or less than any alpha characters or alphanumeric characters. So it makes sure it's either at the beginning or the end of the list. There's some nerd tips for you. So then I'll name it T for whatever task it is. So it's T17. So I'll name it judge, and then sometimes I'll add the color, or if it's free, or if it's a gravity marker, I'll add a GMD on there. So 7688, 2434, and then this one is a white baggie, so I'm going to change the color of this one to white, and make the waypoint, and now I have that waypoint there that I can navigate to. And
Where's that waypoint? On the map, I see
Right
that
here.
lettering, oh, there.
yeah, so it's just the
Little
circle
dot.
here, the little, yeah, little teeny tiny dot.
Okay.
You can make all this bigger, Keith.
Okay.
So watership down, there's not really anything for us to draw for that or add to the map, because they're going to be taking off from the judge declared goal, and we just need to know the time. So they're going to fly for 30 to 45 minutes. So for that, we're going to need some sort of chase crew to track them, or some way to know where that balloon is going, because we don't get told. In this case, he flew way further than we expected to, and we took off way further, so he was already long gone, and I never found him. So we drove all over the place looking for where he was at. Alright, and then we have the 2 fly-ons.
Can't help you there.
But so for this one, we have to declare it inside of a radius. So we're going to draw another waypoint. Another radius. 2588 and 2529. Get red. Make waypoint. There's our waypoint. Go back to task rings. And it was a 2K? Yes, 2K. So make that. Select it. That's not gonna move, but I will typically just leave follow waypoint on because to me there's no reason not to. Maybe there's one that I don't know of though. And so we're good with that one now. So this is the area that we can declare once we get to we can only declare inside this circle. Now that doesn't mean the point that we're declaring has to be inside this circle. We just can only say where we're going when we're in there. But we are kind of restricted because it is a minimum and maximum distances between declaration point and declared goal is 200K, and it has a minimum and maximum distances of declared goal from any goal set by the director. So now what we actually have to add is another ring of 2 and 4K to our judge declared goal, because it has to be, we have to get, actually I'm going to make this a different color just to make it easier. So now we have to be inside this red ring before we can declare, but the point we declare has to be somewhere in between these green lines, but it can't be any more than that. So now we've created a limitation. He's created a limitation of where we can declare it. So, and because you have to be 2 to 4K away from your point of declaration, it's actually even smaller than that because it basically cuts off, I think it's somewhere around here, because the furthest point you can put is a point here, but you can't declare it here because you're too close. So your actual point of, like, so we could fake it a little bit and pick it on the map. And let's say right here. And text 5 and what am I? 2 to 4K? Yeah.
How fast of winds did they have?
For this day, it was pretty quick.
They're not flying with navigators, right? So they're doing all this on their own in the air?
Some people had navigators, not everyone. So now we have a rough idea of where we can declare. So we have to be inside the red circle. It has to be, the point we declare has to be in between these, and we need to make sure we declare it basically before this orange line, because any closer than that and we've lost our options to actually get to the point and make a valid declaration. And the winds were going in that way, so you're going to go there. And for this other fly on, it wasn't as crazy. You had to just do a coordinate, goal number with an altitude above 1,000 feet, and has to be 500 feet higher or lower than your declaration point, minimum 2K, minimum 2K. So that's probably one of the more straightforward pieces on the task sheet. Go for it.
When you're flying along and trying to estimate, it really helps to remember that each of those grid marks is 1 kilometer. So if you're trying to estimate how far you are from your designation, you can use the stuff that's already on your map to tell if you don't have time to draw rings.
Yeah. This is stuff I would add during briefing, just to give me a better idea of
Where you need to be.
I will typically, if it's from last year at Nationals, he had the maximum distance double drop. That was a big shape. I will put a waypoint where my best 2 spots could potentially be. I know that that's not necessarily where I'm gonna fly in, but I want to navigate to that place.
Can you save different versions of this for different tasks? Because if you put all the tasks on one map, how do you make heads or tails out of which
Well,
rings or what
You
rings?
zoom out, because that's just one area.
Yeah. So you can zoom out, and then if you have to load a different one, so also Aussie Target has a nice little autosave feature, but I would suggest also making sure that you're saving regularly, because it's not a matter of will it crash, it's a matter of when it will crash. And it will only crash when it is very inconvenient. Which actually, I think it was actually this flight, there was a computer malfunction and everything did happen to pull up, but it was almost very much like, we're hoping for the best. Alright, so we have all the tasks in, and there was another piece that I forgot halfway through this that I didn't go over. So if we go all the way up to the top, he has, for our launch area, he has defined the individual launch, but it has to be beyond these grid lines. So let's go back and to our scoring areas, and we need a south-north of 1550, and we add that one, which should give us a line, where is it? Should be giving us a line somewhere over here. Why is this not working?
Other way, 8550 is your east, 1550 is your northern.
Oh, that's. Yeah. Yes, alright. I was flipping them. 1550. And add this one. Okay, so we have to launch. We have to launch somewhere south of this line and east of this line. And there was not a ton of options, and we also had to be pretty far, like, no, I guess not. It just ended up being really far because there wasn't a ton over here, so we had to be pretty far out here to launch. So, actually, I'm gonna get rid of, that's not gonna work, but we're gonna leave those. Okay. So, clean up the map a little bit so it's easier to see. So, now the idea is we launch from here, we fly to these triangles. The first one is we're trying to make a minimum distance double drop, which is one in the triangle areas and one in the circle areas. So logger marker 1, logger marker 2. So since it's a minimum, your best possible one for this one was this corner and this point right here, the intersecting circles, because it's the circle intersection. Then you're doing a maximum distance double drop of the circle intersection for area A. So as soon as you enter those circles, you need to be making a drop for 15 and 16, because that's going to be your best spot for both. And then for the other piece of the maximum, before you cross this line, you need to make your drop in logger marker 4. And then as you fly into the judge, hopefully you're getting a score on both on the judge, and you can throw a baggie, because any bag in that field field is gonna be better than any logger marker you have made here. And so that will give you your best score for your maximum. And your best score for the maximum would actually be, I think it was this corner, I don't remember which one it actually was, but one of those two. And then you have to go chase the hare, and so so you have to worry about the hare, but your first concern is also this fly on, which has all of these restrictions, because as you're flying in, basically on your approach into that judge is where your area opens up of your valid declaration area. So you need to have a good idea of where you want to declare, probably ready to declare at least something as you get in there. And then after you hit the judge, now, all right, is that fly on still possible? Do I have time to declare something else that I feel I can hit better that is still a valid declaration somewhere inside this these green rings, and go from there. So it's a lot of kind of on the fly thinking in the air, trying to figure out what you're doing. And that's pretty much it. So then after that you do the fly on. For this, he actually ended up somewhere like way over here. And we were looking over here, and eventually we figured out from someone that was very nice that gave us some coordinates that should have worked, and that's where we were going with that. We're like, that's really far.
That's where the hare went?
Huh?
That's where the hare went?
Yes.
So what were you supposed to do with the hare? If you
That's-
saw it, you do it.
Yeah, so a hare balloon in a watership down or a hare and hound, they're always going to fly with. So you're always going to get a picture of what the balloon looks like, so you know what balloon you're chasing. The balloon will almost always, if it has not landed yet, they will have part of the X dangling, one of the legs dangling out of the basket. And so it's a big tail hanging out of the basket, so you know that they haven't dropped it yet. And typically a hare will almost always land, set up the X as quickly as possible, and then they're going to lay down and be out of the way. Sometimes they'll take off again, like if it's not a great landing site or whatever. Like it's good enough to land to put the X, but it's not ideal for setting down. Yeah. So now it's at that point it's just a judge declared goal really, where you're now trying to fly to an X and throw bang.
But you have to figure out where it is.
Yes. The tricky part is knowing where they went.
And they fly for about 45 minutes.
Whatever.
Well,
Whatever they say.
They will. I don't know if it's.
I don't know if it's
I think it's.
It's at 30 to 45 minutes
think it's-
depending on landing.
In the rules, I'd have
Yeah,
to
30
check
to
the
45.
double check the rules, but they will almost always specify like how long they intend to fly, so that you can gauge that and know like, all right, by now they should have been landed. And that's not a guarantee either, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out. They're going to do their best to make it work out, but it doesn't.
Women's Worlds, we had
Yeah,
that.
he really caught a fast wind and just took off. And because we were launching so far away, it took us a while to drive out there in the first place, find a spot, and then by the time I was able to even get here, I think, yeah, I think the balloon was already basically just about beating us, and he was, long gone by the time I got there. So we took off and chased all around here. I think I still have the track somewhere. say more complicated map. It can get as complicated or as not complicated as the event director chooses. Like this was probably one of the more complicated task sheets that we had from the week, but they were not all like this. And this was an afternoon flight too. It was more interesting because typically on an afternoon flight you're going to get usually you end up with a lighter task load.
So was he able to get out by the air balloon?
No, we ended up, because of sunset, we ended up having to just set down and eat before the time closed, because everything closed at 8. So he just pushed his button and took whatever he got. Like we literally never saw it. Any questions on Aussie, or maybe we can try to answer questions on like how this would potentially work on any of the other softwares.
So when you're thinking about the order of tasks and what you're gonna do as you're flying along, do you write that down anywhere, or just in your mind you sort of scripted it and rehearsed it, and so you have a great idea of when you're gonna throw what where?
Maybe a little bit of both. So like there's a lot of writing on the task sheet itself. So my competition board is over here. Sure. So this sits on the side of my basket.
Is he the basket?
Yes. He's hanging outside. So I have my task sheet here so that I know what I need to be doing, and I have a bunch of notes that either I've written or Karen's written on there during the briefing. So just reminders, so I know, like, all right, I need to make sure I drop this baggie. I'm going to emphasize which logger marker it is, what the color is, all that jazz.
Gravity.
Yes. So it's notes like that, and then I think also it's a little bit of you're really going through that flight while looking at the map, or just in your head and really thinking like this drop, that drop, this drop, that drop, and going through it, processing it before you're trying to fly the flight before you fly the flight. This one. Aha, there it is. Yes, so this was us driving. So we started way down here.
Yeah, it's variable winds when you're driving.
Yeah. So we ended up going, those are the roads by the time we got here, and even though this looks like one, I think we did that circle at least 3 times.
Oh.
Like, because one was over to here, and then we drove here, and then we drove back to here, and then back over to here and up there, and then we ended up over there. It was a mess. Yeah. Any more questions? Aussie? Not Aussie? Go for it.
Are you using Aussie tracking with like helping him?
Yes, yeah. So we had Aussie tracking running, so I could see where he was at, what waypoint he was navigating to. So it'll draw whatever waypoint.
So just for those of you that aren't familiar, that's a separate program that you purchase,
Yes.
but it allows your ground team to have the same access to your screen and other competitor screens that they share it with you, so you can see what's happening in the air.
Yeah. So you can go to here. You can click on the different names. It'll show you their altitude, heading, speed, what waypoint they're going to. You can click this one, and it'll draw their waypoint on your map. You can center on the waypoint. So it's really handy, because if you know where they're flying to for like a fly on or a PDG, it lets you know what stage of flight they're in. So if he's still navigating to, if it's the maximum distance double drop, and he's still navigating to this point here, I know that he probably hasn't finished that yet. So I can go there if that's helpful, but for this one it was not helpful, so I was just going to go. Question?
What navigation tools, so where you see the Aussie target in the green and the purple, Those are a lot of tools that we use in flight. I know it's hard to kind of imagine them right now. I use turn all the time to navigate to my next target.
I'll try to start the.
I don't know if we want to just mention a few of those that are helpful. That's what I want to learn more about, is how to
Yeah, I was
use
gonna ask
those.
and talk about like the transit point and like the heading hold you can do.
So this is once you're moving, flying, you can click navigate and then pick your next point that you're navigating to, and all those values on the Aussie target column there are going to change numbers to things that'll be helpful to you.
So this is what you'll look like whenever, and you can change how that line looks, how you look. And go ahead and go 20K. So you can be flying along. Going really fast. So you're flying along, you push your buttons, and then you can click on, so now I've done this, let's say I'm done there.
Can you make it big? Can you give them that on the screen? The task sheet?
What?
Give me a test sheet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you can right click on any of the waypoints and you click navigate to or cancel navigation, and so that shows up all of this information. So this is your heading, so what direction you're going, your bearing, so where you want to go, and how much of a turn you need to get where you want to go. So I need 24 degrees of right to actually head towards that target.
Well, now 26. You're moving really fast. You're really
Yes, yeah. This was a bad day.
Keep going, turn.
Also, if you are counting down to that number and you're very happy and it says, you know, right 2, and then it starts suddenly counting up, like left 42,
Yeah.
you've passed it, you better hit your button pretty quick. Because that happened to us
So at that point,
times.
actually, that's kind of where you do the transit line, right?
Yeah, so that's what I was about to show. So the other nice part is it only works if you're navigating to a target. You can use the transit point, so turn that on. This actually shows you where your closest point with your current heading is going to be. You have to click that again if you change. So like if I get a little bit more left, and now that's my track, it doesn't update that transit line for me. I have to click it again, and now it shows
Hey,
me.
go get it 61 meters.
Yeah, that's solid.
That's not bad.
If everyone else is 70 meters, I'm golden.
Do you use the heading hold when you do yours?
Yes.
Like for
Yeah.
like finals and stuff, or?
I will typically use that for like wins from the crew. So if they're at the target and they're saying it's 122 on the deck, then I will click that and draw it there, and
Say
that
that
draws
again?
my line.
That's cool.
What's this?
It's basically like you can do your like heading.
The heading hold at the bottom.
Yeah. So
Can you
basically,
point out which one it is?
this one here.
Okay.
So you enter whatever heading that you want to look at, and you can do that here or using the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Well, that one will
You
store
can-
what you're already doing, right?
that stores what you're already doing, and then you can draw this at a waypoint, or I think you can even just click on the map, and it'll draw it wherever you want.
It's kind of like another way to do like a wind line that you've
Yeah.
been doing, like when you do your wind lines, Natasha. It's just
Yeah.
another way to do that.
You can
And
do it
you can do
quicker.
like if you're going at a 90, you can just tell it what's my heading right now, and then you can go and be like, okay, now go to the next target. Where am I going to go if I have a 90 from there?
Yeah. Which if you haven't been using the wind readers stuff too, those are very handy. So you can go in, put whatever layers you want to be concerned about, and then you can actually go in and select a target, and that gives you your direction. So this is your 50 degrees, this is your 20, and that blue is your 40. So if the red is, basically you're wanting to end up somewhere inside that cone, right? Because
Or launching.
yes, that I will typically use these for you write those out, you put it on whatever the first target is, maybe the second target, just to kind of understand like what to expect when you're coming out also. And that gives you a gauge of like I mean, if you're launching outside of those lines, you are not likely to make it to your target. Unless there's something really weird that you're seeing, but then in that case you should be putting it in here. Because maybe you have like a 50 or something.
Rumor has it there's something that tells you when to drop the baggie from altitude.
Oh, yes. I have not successfully used it because every time I've tried to, I forget where my inclinometer is. But, so what you can do, so because I'm moving so fast, it'll tell you degrees. So if you're moving at 0, you want 90 degrees. So you're going to take your inclinometer, you look down until it matches the number that you're getting, and you let the baggie go, and wherever you're looking, if it's in line with your heading, is about where the baggie should land. There's a lot of variables to that, but
Like all the wind layers, Billy?
yeah, it'll get you generally pretty close though.
Closer than you might,
How many people are going to drop the baggie from 2,000 feet up?
4,000 at
Yeah.
nationals.
And no better than
Go
that.
do it for fun and just go see how long it is watching your baggie and how many times it turns.
Yeah, at the last year of Scotts Bluff, I got the closest physically to the target. I was about 9,500 feet, which is like right on the blue, just about. So it was at 10, and I threw a baggie out, and I had no expectation that it was going to end up inside the scoring
Put a tracking
area.
device on it so you can figure it out?
No, I never
You
found
just
it.
gave away money.
I threw $20 out of the basket. But it was worth it to me because really all I wanted was to end up on the scoring sheet to say retrieved outside the scoring area. That's really what I was going for.
Because nobody was throwing.
Yeah. And at that point I was also dropping very fast because I needed to get down inside the 3D area so I didn't get 3D scoring. And I think I still ended up taking a 3D scoring because there was so much left that day that it would have thrown me off the other targets I had to get to.
The scoring was calling me saying, did he actually throw? Like, we need to look for a baggie?
And I radioed to her, and apparently they never even heard me, so they didn't even know that I threw.
By the way, baggies drop like 1,400 feet a minute, so it takes a long time to get
takes a long
Yeah, especially when you're watching it, hoping that it lands in a scoring
Well,
area.
and you're watching it the whole
You're
time, you
watching
think it's
it,
already hitting
yeah.
the ground. You're like, oh, it's gonna hit, and it
Yeah.
just keeps falling.
And you drop your baggie and you're passing your baggie going down.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
Oh, no.
You were grabbing hard enough.
Hopper did one time.
Well, you should grab it and throw it again.
Yeah, I don't like that one. Okay, take it back.
Take it back.
I think I threw it and then started my descent.
Oh,
And that was the first time he flew the racer. And Hopper was like, oh, I like it.
So I got past my baggie, but,
You push
now
it.
what happens if you drop it when you grab it?
Good.
You already dropped it.
Well, we had that was the discussion
no
we had.
ground contact.
Yeah, no ground contact, so that's really good.
Throw it.
Officially speaking, until the marker hits the ground, it's not live, right?
Yeah, that's how I read it.
I mean, if you can figure out how to actually
I
track
guess
your
actually
baggie,
it might depend on
It works in wrapping around the red line.
how they're considering it, if they're like, if it's a time thing. Are they
well, no,
considering time
Natasha says
Yeah.
they clarified that, right?
What?
It's
time
clarified
on
that the
ground
time is
now.
when the baggie hits the ground.
Yeah, that's the new updated
Yeah,
version.
it's not time out of the basket anymore.
Because it used to be out of the basket, right? So you could be like coming over and you're like, bro.
Yeah, but that's harder to determine because,
When you're at 10,000 feet.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
From
threw it 5
2,000
minutes
feet, how
ago.
many seconds?
I think that's why they did that.
Oh, yeah.
It's for you, like, people use it, so you guys can do rings like this and change colors. It's not as easy as how he
I wish there was a way to do different colors.
but you can make all those rings
Like you could choose
just the
each.
same. You can
Like
change
you
the
could like,
opacity if you want to shape
and then you put
area
like a
where they call it
You could
shaded
do it
area, or you
with
can make it completely
multiple rings.
You'd have to take multiple.
Can you do the
Like
Yeah.
that task one and then task.
So that dark pink drop is,
Wouldn't be ideal,
You
but
got that.
most
You
task
know
sheets
where
are
it's
gonna
at.
call for that.
You can get an idea of.
We get 6, right?
Yeah.
You can do a pro version.
so that dark pink is always calculating
Or 160.
the angle you want to drop at as you're
Oh,
any
yes,
differences.
yeah.
I just ignore half the things on there, so. Oh, does everybody know that trick? If you
Yeah.
hover over or right click or something,
You just click the thing, so
click on one, it becomes your.
whatever thing you want, so like, whenever I was skirting very close to the blue PZ, I pulled up the altitude because I wanted to make sure that I could very easily see that I was not exceeding 10,000 feet.
Whereas I always have my turn out because that's the only.
You never do that, you never use like the log points on there, do you?
Like this one?
Yeah.
I have tried to, and I just never remember to do it, and I
It doesn't really do you,
Yeah.
it would be more of like a flight report form sort of thing.
It is, and then with the BLA and the option to go back
And look at it.
and look at where the points were, I'll just do it after the fact if I need to. Yeah, so I'll go in, I can create the markers using the waypoint tool, and that works just fine, especially for flight reports or review stuff. It's actually
When I do my flight report, that's what I do, especially with electronics, I just then download from Watch Me Fly and put the waypoints in there, and then you just measure,
yeah,
here's where it was supposed to be, and here's the 2,000 meters off.
yeah. Which, yeah, you can, if
But you can measure waypoint to
you can
waypoint.
also do measuring with Aussie, so there's a little show the distance and bearing display. So if I want to see the distance between R3, click that one, to the judge,
There's another way to do it.
click that.
There's a measurement from waypoints.
And target.
No, in Aussie.
Oh.
For some reason I have to look for it every time. Distance between waypoints under view, Alt D, because then you can literally just pick two of the waypoints that you have on there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want.
Yeah, actually, that might be better. I tend to use the ruler, because it's like, I'm more concerned about like where I am.
Yeah.
But even in that case, I tend to just have, I'll start navigating to whatever the first target is out the gate, because then I know what my bearing is, I know what my heading is, I know how far away I am.
You can show the multiple waypoint parts.
I never end up using that anymore. So you can do the multiple targets. So if you have like Hez waltzes and you're not sure which one is going to be your best option, you can select multiples. So now it will show you both your distance to them and your bearing, so you can determine, like, all right, I'm going to go to the right because that's where my best direction is at.
Well, I've used it for cracks too. It's like there's two different ones where you can kind of be like, well, if I go this way.
Yes, and so like the
It'll
distance
give
or
you
the
the ETA.
estimated time to arrive. So it's like, all right, that one's going to take me 10 minutes to get to. I'm going to be in the timeline or the time of the next one. So I might as well.
Have ET.
That's
ETA,
that's
estimated
ET.
time.
So here, if I-
Estimated time to the.
Which really helps for crats, big time. Literally.
so if I add some speed,
Calculated rate of approach.
it should. There we go. So it'll take me 3 minutes to get to the judge and 2 minutes to get to the R3. And then
Well, how many do give you the beginning of the turn? So you can kind of like,
you'd have to do the math.
well, you just do your heading next to it, and then you
Yeah.
kind of look.
The other thing that I tend to use during flight is the flight winds. So as you go around and do maneuvering, it'll track what direction you're going. So that's real handy, because then you don't really have to think like, all right, where was that 50? Where was that 23? Whatever. You can just look at this and, all right, it was at 2,000 feet. Go back to there.
So
Or
that's
you
magnetic. Can you change it to true?
You can rapidly ask your navigator,
Yes.
where was the 50?
You're there yelling because your bailfangs don't work when you need them.
I don't know if you can switch that to true. I've
Yes,
never.
you can.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is. No, that's to from. And then, where is it?
Oh,
Is that just dependent on the.
under settings and then wind
There it is.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
do you fly in magnetic or true?
Magnetic.
You, good.
You? Like that?
Yeah.
Why?
Because almost every reading that we get is generally magnetic. When your crew's giving you readings off of a compass, that's going to be magnetic. And
When they give the wind readings using a wind song though, is that using true or magnetic?
it depends on what the settings are, but I think that they generally, whenever I do it, I'm setting it to magnetic.
Where do you get a wind song?
I forget
How
what
is
the
it
website is.
spelled?
You go to the board meeting and
With the D
you
and
spend some of that money on,
S-O-N-D.
Yeah,
I saw one.
yeah, it's a wind song.
Insomnia.
No, it's
Wind song.
S-O-N-D.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you use, like wind aloft and all those, I thought they were true.
Wind sounds.
It's on the ground.
I think it's, yeah, I think it's in the right place.
Or D.
So Smart embedded, they have like the packages.
If you could send me a link, that'd be appreciated.
I think this is the ones that we use.
I'll double check. If I don't send you a link, remind me.
Okay.
Does it come with coffee?
So for there's a lot of restaurants by that.
We didn't really go over it earlier, but, so,
There's some very good about
this piece. So that's Aussie Target. Aussie Target is pretty much the best option for competition navigation right now. It's actually, so Aussie Target is separate from Aussie Explorer. They're two separate programs, but you need both to make it work. Aussie Explorer is developed as a,
just a map.
it's just a mapping software. I'm forgetting that acronym of what they use it for, but a lot of like academic type stuff, research type stuff will use it for going through the backwards and stuff. Aussie Target is the thing that operates on top of that. That's developed by Sean Kavanagh out of Australia, and he's still giving updates to it, and he has a lot of, if you go to the website, he has a bunch of videos, Aussie Explorer versus Aussie Target, guides and videos, that really go through and teach you all about how to use it. Highly recommended, because if you need to brush up on something, it probably has a video on it. And for other stuff, so like a lot of you are using Avenza, that's cool. I haven't really used Avenza. I know that you've used it pretty extensively, so apparently there's a way to make rings. I guess
You
you
can,
can
you
make
can,
waypoints.
you can make different waypoints, make different rings, track, you can navigate to each. It is a little different, you do have to select each one, so once you hit a task, you go past it, it's gonna continue navigating yourself to that task, but you just find your next one, click on it, start navigating, it'll tell you, hey, you're already navigating, just go through it, and it'll start giving you your course, your bearing, what you need, and your estimated time arrival, all that stuff. So if it is running a crack, you can, while you're like looking, you can see, okay, well this one's open. If it's two separate places, you can navigate to one, see which one, what it's gonna take to get there. You can look at the other one, see what it's gonna take. So if one's a slower speed, but it's, later on, you might choose to go that one. Just all depends. But yeah, you can do rings, you can do shaded areas, you can do, 3D shades. It does take a little bit longer than like how he made his rings. He can make a 2 or 4 and he can stack those. You gotta make one ring at a time, make another ring. So, it is doable, it does take a little bit longer. But, once you practice it, it's, you can do it, slower, but, at a decent pace. A lot of times I do have my navigator listen to briefings to write stuff down, mark it while I'm up doing that. So, yeah, there's a lot. There is a pro version. There's another version, like $160. I have not had to do that, and I feel like if you are going to spend that, if you don't wanna buy a Surface or a laptop or do it, then maybe that's for you. But at that end, you might as well just start going to Ozzy if you're starting to get past what events it can't do.
Other options, you don't necessarily feel like jumping into the Aussie waters. Balloon Nav, I'm fairly certain that he has this as an Android app also. This is another guy out of Australia. This one has a ton of features. Also, it's kind of overwhelming with how many features it has, but it's really great, and it allows you to do all the similar stuff. You can draw areas, do rings, navigation, all that jazz. Yeah, I think.
Well, it's only.
I think some of it is.
Well, I think it's only for if you want to do the tracking, right? I think.
Yeah.
If there's a tracking subscription, or you can just download it just to use, kind of like Ozzy.
So every time I try, so it won't connect to a GPS unless you have the subscription.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It does have a weight calculator.
He kind of set that up kind of where you can like almost put in a task sheet, so you can actually like put all the other like. It asks, is it a gravity drop? Is it friggin'?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting setup.
Yeah. Another one that I just saw the other day. I think this is a guy out of maybe Russia. I'm not really sure.
That one that was posted on that.
Yeah, it was posted in Balloon Talk. This is pretty handy. So like you can make waypoints real easily. You can do rings. He says he struggles to use it. So draw a point. There's your waypoint. Draw a circle. Boom.
Oh, that's easy.
There's a circle. And here's a line. You want that. Stop. But yeah, map. I've also used this one very minimally. I know I would say it's more similar to like Motion X probably in things that you can do. It's really more just basic waypoints and general navigation. It's not. I don't know if there's a way to do rings, stuff like that. I have my app. I don't know that entirely. If you want to get into it, you can. I don't know that I entirely recommend it because it can be kind of goofy at times. I think it's great. I think Karen likes it for chasing because one of the features that I have is that, and I was actually using this in Austria, is you can put the task sheet in. Let's do this one. Active. So one of the nice things is you can put the targets in, and then your crew can click on the target and then get driving directions to it. It's not directions for you in the balloon, but it's directions for the crew. So they, yes, exactly. Which, like a lot of people are like, oh, I know the roads and everything, but often I found that both mapping systems can be just as quick, or if not quicker, than some shortcuts that you tend to take. Then we also got Hot Air. I love Hot Air. I use it pretty much at every flight. It's great. I use it for logging and keeping track of all of that stuff. It's not so great at competition stuff. I think he's working on stuff for it, but I don't think it's that.
It works if you have like one single target
Yeah,
that you can put in.
if you're
it's
just
not gonna be coordinate based kind of. It's like if you can put your finger on a point.
If you know it's at this park, you can go to that park and push your finger on it and navigate to it. But like that task sheet that I was just showing, you would have a tough time because I don't think it has any rings capability or anything like that.
How to time it though for Android?
Oh
It's hit and miss. And then,
Okay.
and like, depending on what phone you're using, which version of Android, it shows up in Play Store and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, I thought that I heard that he wasn't really updating.
It's been
it
updated in
much.
2023.
Yeah. But I've seen a lot of people use that and swear by it. I know Ashworth, I think he uses this still.
You really knew Ozzy really well. Surprised.
Doesn't use all these things.
She used to.
It's a lot of, so like, I use mine a lot more on the ground, stuff like that, because I have the measuring tool, so I can put that on there, kind of see what, right, like, I can, whenever, with the satellite view, it's like, all right, I can see that there's a park here, which is a potential launch site, so what is the bearing from there to the target that I'm trying to get to? What's the distance, like, is it far enough away, is it too far away, all that sort of jazz, which,
That's actually with going back to Avenza, I'm using, there's a beta map, which I never clicked into it, but it actually is a satellite version, so, I mean, you'd have to go in and set like your PZs that are on the Top Gun map, at least for what is there. So, like, you don't have that on the beta map, but it also gives you, you may not be able to see it on the Top Gun map, you'll be able to see it on that beta map, because it is a satellite version. But, it's not always updated, because it might look like dirt that is supposed to be for houses, but in reality, there's houses there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, at this point, Google Earth will sometimes do
yeah. But you can do it that way, you can add certain spots, but.
So, are every single one of these systems moving map systems tied with GPS?
Yes.
as far as I'm aware,
Yeah,
yes,
as far as I'm aware,
I don't think
yeah,
there's
you
any
could-
that are not.
You start a track.
As long as you have GPS capability on the device, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
As
don't
long as the
think-
GPS is.
I don't think all of them, I would say actually Aussie might be the only one that can link up to a external GPS in any way. Yeah. Natasha, you had questions about like etiquette questioning during briefing. I guess have we
I think we
answered
kinda went
those,
over
or
that already.
I kinda
do you have any more?
Mostly just let everything be said and then come up at, like, ask, if you have a question on the sheet that's not clear, ask it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it might be something that somebody else hasn't caught yet and you're clarifying for the whole deal, or it might be something that somebody else doesn't want asked because they're gonna take advantage of that loophole.
Yep.
Or something, so go ahead. Go ahead and ask it. But if it's something where you're just not sure of how to enter something in Aussie or that kind of thing, that's the ask a neighbor question, and you can't ask questions after the ED has shut down their presentation. They cannot.
You can't
By
ask
rule,
questions of the ED.
To the ED.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I based off that, I kind of talked with Sarah and Karen, and it was kind of like going over, you know, what it meant. And like, there's questions that might come off as like, show me questions. We don't really want like, show me questions in the middle of briefing. So like, those are ones that you might ask your neighbor after, like, hey, can you show me how this is done? Whereas briefing time is a lot more clarification questions. So we want people to kind of know the difference, so we can, because everybody wants to get the task sheet, understand it, and get out the door.
And it takes a while before you know what questions to ask in briefing.
Yeah.
But as you listen to other people ask questions, you'll start to see holes in the task sheet where maybe it was just an error, or maybe they forgot something, where if you truly do have a question, it's probably for good reason.
I mean, the people that ask the most questions at, like, even nationals are usually the world level competitors, guys. They're the bigger competitors are usually the ones, and you're like, man, I wouldn't even think to ask that question. And they're doing it for clarifying, because that's in the end, if they think that they're gonna do it one way, and they're worried the event director is gonna be like, nope. You ask a clarifying question, and then there's no question whether they are gonna how they're gonna decide
That's set.
on something that might be,
At that point, they're now committed to, that's how it's going to be flown, so.
or how it's gonna be scored, or
Yeah.
like stuff like that.
So if it gets to the point of a protest or whatever, it, you know, you go back to that, it's like, you said this, which can work for you or against you.
And likewise, pay attention to your scores when they come out, see what you did, ask people, you know, does this make sense? Because there's plenty of times where I've missed a chance to ask a simple question and get more points, where I didn't even know I could ask, not a protest, but a complaint, which is no charge, you just stop the scoring and they say, oh yeah, you dropped the wrong baggie or declared the wrong mark, but you can still get points for that error, you don't get a 0 score. So if something's not making sense to you or you're not sure how you did what you did, talk to everybody, and that's where the tailgating and meeting up afterwards to talk about your flights is super important because you'll learn so much more there.
Yeah, generally most pilots, like after the flight is done, are going to be very willing to talk about the tasks and how they were thinking through it, approaching it.
You might get one attitude in the morning, but after the flight,
Yeah.
you could
Yeah,
have
if you ask between briefing and like their flight time,
Yeah, if that's a bad time to ask questions that like.
You need to stop and show.
Yeah, if they have to expend any additional brain power to explain something to you, they're probably going to get agitated because they're trying to process that flight.
I
And
mean, I'm watching you, you're like,
yes,
beeline to your truck, you're not like, hey sir,
yeah,
if I tried to ask you where the bathroom was, you'd be like,
what bathroom?
not time for a bathroom right now?
Yeah, find some porn.
Not you know that.
Don't land anything.
Yeah, you know, it's just a few bushels you get away.
Does anybody have questions on, tasks, different, basically any kind of the task sheet, different tasks, maybe event director stuff, anything else for us that we can try to answer? This is more definitely on the advanced side, that it's, we can get into explaining like how a task should be flown. What's up?
I think we were talking about protests and stuff like that, and I think one thing that I had a hard time with at first, even though it's in the rule book, is like, how do protests go through, and like, how does that happen? And then there's usually supposed to be a complaint first, which has no fee, and that goes to the event director, and then from there, if you're dissatisfied with what the event director's decision was, then you can do a protest with a protest fee of $100, and from there, that goes to the jury president and the jury to make a decision.
Yeah, so this goes
Yeah.
back with, when you guys select those jurors, there has to be a formal complaint filed. They will then look into it. If they see that there is a potential, if they wanna fight it, they can pay $100, $100 to protest something. If they wanna pay the $100, they'll pay it. It has to be a formal written protest, what you're protesting, the reason behind it. Then the juror and the president jurors and the juror president will go through, work it all out, and either come to a conclusion, or most of the time they'll come to a conclusion whether it's, hey, this is right, or sorry, this is wrong. Or I don't know if it's ever happened on the other side that they say, we have to come back to it. Because I'm pretty sure there's been a complaint protest that has gone on for months. Didn't it happen at juniors?
Yeah,
Where,
it's-
they
Well,
barely
juniors had the one that they ended up, I mean,
It's-
they
in a
answered
bucket,
it, but
right?
they answered it, but it then went, I
It
think
went-
they talked about it at FAI.
It went through the jury. It's still being discussed at a even more extensive sort of protest level. So I think at this point the standings for juniors are still not official.
Really?
Yeah,
But
because
in
this is
general,
still ongoing.
at our level, if you do through that system, it holds up the scores, because
Yes.
whatever the decision of that protest results in might change more than just that one protester's score. So once they decide on that, whatever, then good, bad, or ugly, they will proceed to score everybody to that decision.
Yes.
So you have a right to ask for clarifying questions, basically. So you have a right to ask scoring and the event director for clarifying
It's
If you're not satisfied with the original ones, you write a formal complaint to the event director. He can choose to then decide with you. If you don't like the event director's answer, is where you choose that you may or may not want to protest. So the protest is saying, I still don't agree, I don't like the response from the ED. I want the jury to now look at this.
Yeah, you're basically asking, now it's no longer between you and the ED. Well, it is, but you're saying, I want basically mediators of outside folks to come in and weigh in on this.
But that
Because I
comes
think
into like going into court. You're going in and you're giving them rule numbers, you're giving them what your evidence is, why you believe that you're right versus the event director, and giving them a little bit to go on and see how well it works out.
And that gets posted on Watch Me Fly.
Yeah,
And
protests
you can see
and
all of
protests
that
and jury
public.
responses have to be
Public.
and everything. If you write one that's not very well worded, they may come back and tell you that.
Yeah, actually, that I think sort of has been a thing. Like if it's not very respectful and sort of bouncing around and not real clear on what you're even complaining about, they're gonna be like that standing. That's how it stands.
That was one of
It
ours
goes
that-
back to etiquette.
And if you're gonna,
Yes.
if you're
If-
gonna
if
protest, make
people
sure you have a
push-
clear head and ready to like clearly and concisely go towards it. If you're just pissed off at the world, ready to go, you're gonna probably
But-
tell go away for now.
Also, very much start with that first step of like, maybe you misunderstood the task, which is very often the case. Like, it didn't get to even any of this because I looked back and figured out what I did wrong, but like, Savada last year at Nationals thought he was good, went in to sort of not do a complaint but ask for assistance, and was basically told, you didn't have a valid declaration because
He
this.
crossed the
Yeah,
voting line, didn't he?
and so after looking at that, it's like, oh, all right, yeah, that was my goof. And as long as you're nice, I think the staff almost will always be nice. There's always exceptions to that.
Best advice to any competitor is that rule book right there. Read the whole thing.
Yeah.
The more you know that rule book, honestly, the better you're probably going to do in competition.
Anything that can be answered by this rule book, at a certain point, people might get annoyed, or that we're going to start picking apart words in here. Like, does it say and or? Does it say must or should? All that nonsense where you're really digging into the weeds when you're getting into protest land of particulars. And then like with the tasks, that goes back to the question stuff. Like if something can be answered by the rule book, you should probably know it from the rule book, but also like we're all going to be discussing it too.
I mean, I did that with that angle test, and they called it nationals, because we don't really call it angles. We've done land runs, and we've done certain things, but I was like, well, how do you only have 2 points? Because usually we have, like, elbows with 3 points.
Yep.
And my first step was pull up the task. They even give you the numbers on the task sheet of what the task is, so it makes it real easy to find and read that first. And I answered my own question before I decided to make myself look like an idiot at nationals.
And just carry the rule book with you. We have a copy of it in the back pocket of the seat or whatever. So if for whatever reason, and they're going to give you a copy, usually in your pilot pack. So just make sure that's in the truck with you.
What's nice about the electronic version though, you can do a control find and find stuff a lot easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know it's in there somewhere, but
Well, the
sometimes
he
you
has
can't
a
find
new
it.
HACD rule.
Tougher.
So there's an FAI rule book, there's an HACD rule book,
And actually,
there's a
with-
Top Gun rule book. For the most part, there.
With this, since they give you the rule numbers, you could just do a search for
Except for where
that.
they're different.
Well, there's more.
Except for where they're different.
Except for where they're different.
Well, and then you have updates too.
No, that's different.
Problem is they get updated all the wrong, at different times.
Yeah.
There you go. Generally, they should match up.
There's gonna be some things at the world level.
Like if
that
you
can
want
be
to
a
find the
little
marker
bit
color, you can put that in there.
different. The penalty section's a great one to read if you wanna know how much you get penalized for certain things.
Derek, draw it out.
to know the rules so you know you don't break them, you just want to bend them.
Yeah.
It's like the law. Yeah, an elbow versus like an angle versus.
Alright, so an elbow. Huh? Yeah. So elbow, I think, you're generally gonna make. You're gonna have ABC. Those could be defined. Typically, they're gonna be defined by you, though.
I mean, sometimes there'll be like one or two have been defined by possibly other tasks, and then you.
Yes.
Or you can do.
But generally, so your best result is going to be 180 degrees. So if this is your point A, you fly over here, you create your point B. Your best result is to get back into this if you can. And wherever you have to, according to the stipulations of the task data sheet, and create your point C, so that you have 180 degrees of difference between for your angle, or for that angle. And then angle task. Well, an angle is basically.
On angle, the angle is the one where they give you a set line. Basically, they give you an angle, and you need to be. You want your 2 points to be as much of a change. So if they say you're on like a 180, you want to find like a 90-degree wind.
So, an angle task, they're basically defining a line for you. So, if they say 90 degrees, you have to get as far away from 90 degrees
Well,
as
your
possible.
you want your 2 points to then be either like a 180 or like
Yes.
a 0. So if they're telling you like a
Well-
straight east, you want to go straight north or straight south.
Yes.
And they could set it to where like you hit a target, and they say, after this target, you have to get the farthest distance off of 90.
How do they know?
They'll just set it.
So,
They'll just set
yeah,
it.
what they're gonna do is, so like, if your heading is this way, because you've created an A and a B, so,
So do you have
let's
to
say you make that point.
declare a goal or something?
That, usually for an angle, they're always gonna give you an angle, that degree that they're setting for you. So like if you do this,
Point A and B, or
Well,
descriptions
yeah.
of it.
and you end up with
How it
100,
runs it.
you now have a score of 10 degrees.
Do you want to see the?
So-
I mean, the task sheet from Nationals had an angle. You want to see how it's.
This
how they
could
put it
be
in that
like drop 1.
Okay.
So then on Balloon Live, you hit drop 1, that would start your A. So from that task, wherever you drop that, you know that 90 degrees of where you drop that is where you actually need to fly. Say you didn't get to the task, but you dropped here, 90 degrees heading. If you followed that 90 degrees, you have no angle. So you would have to change your angle based
We
off
have-
that 90
First you
degree.
have to determine point D, whatever it is.
No, point
No,
A.
point A.
No.
Then when you do your
Wait,
second drop,
an
you have
angle,
90
an angle has to have two.
The change in
Guys,
angle.
the angle has to have 2 points. The result is the angle in your line. You are creating a line. It is the difference of the line they gave you
It was
and
on the
your
screen,
line.
sir.
Yeah, it said A
Whenever
and
you
B.
closed, it was on that screen.
Yeah.
An A and a B.
Description of
The
point A
competitor
and B,
will
so you
attempt to
gotta go.
achieve the greatest change from the direction from the set direction. So they basically say, if we think the wind line's basically doing like a 90-degree wind line, you need to create a line that is the greatest change from 90.
Well, correct, you need to change, but you're gonna set a point here. If I say fly 10 minutes, and whatever your biggest angle for B is, that's when you would drop B. Yeah.
I mean, it could be, yes.
Actually, backwards.
But just the direction of those between those two.
So
You
there's a
you
video
make
somewhere
A,
here.
and then you wanna fly this way to 180, that's your best result for a B spot.
Yes.
Cause you're trying to fly away from the,
No.
Opposite.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
okay,
you're flying.
So, if you go on to the junior, if you go watch the Junior World that
You're
Don
trying to
Hereford
get
talked
the
about,
greatest
there's an
change.
angle test that he directly goes onto
Yeah,
Ozzy
'cause
and
you're creating
explains
one
it
line.
drawn out.
What you're doing is
And
you're
based
creating
off
a
how
line,
he
and
had
that
it,
line's being based on
it
the
was-
being
Yes.
compared to the
They
line
got
that
to
You're
you're
the
getting
task.
that angle.
They marked their task. They had a
You're
set
getting
degree off of
angle
120.
A, B,
Their
C.
thing was to fly farther off here and the biggest angle from here to here was the score.
Yes, the best possible
No,
score you
that's
could
it.
have
I'm
is a
pretty sure I have
180.
That's
What's
it.
that?
Because you're not gonna get a 360, that would be a.
No.
Yeah.
So
The
really,
best score you can have is a 180.
yeah. So I mean, your best would
Which is
be
what they're
either
saying.
here or here.
No,
No,
180, all the way backwards.
I'm not actually sure that's true. Because, I
Actually,
mean, actually, no, what I'm gonna say is, let me try to explain what my thought process is here.
The key is at the end, it says the greatest result is the
but-
best.
Anyway, can I try? And
Sure.
we can ask somebody that actually knows more, because this is not my thought process on this. When they do an angle, they give you a line, right? So they say
Officer
90
points.
degrees. No, they give you a 90-degree line. That is what
It's
they
not a
tell you.
line.
It's
A
an
line is
angle.
2 points.
That's an
Yeah.
angle.
They give you-
90-degree angle, okay? They give you basically a wind line that you're trying to change from. I remember this because I specifically
They're giving you-
had to ask questions. You
Draw your
get-
line that you're.
Okay,
yeah.
but you can do a line is a 90 degree,
Mm-hmm.
going like straight east.
Okay.
All you're doing is a point A and a point B, which
That's what they
draws
give you.
which draws a line.
Yes.
So you want that line to be the greatest change from this line, and I'm not really sure that if it's 90 and you go 180, it's still the same line.
Because you're still going from A to B or B to A.
It's-
you're not-
So,
But it depends on how they declare it, because they're only looking at the line between the 2 points.
you press,
Your angle is still a
angle.
90 degree or 180 line, which is still the same,
here,
depending
so
on how it's
an
scored.
elbow, you create the A, B, and C,
Right.
right? So there's your angle, whatever
3
that
points
is.
makes an angle, yeah.
But all we're doing is creating the 2 points.
Yes,
Right.
they're
That's
basically,
the
you can
start.
look at it as they're giving you an A or a C.
Yep.
So,
So,
say this is your 90. you
If
can
90
come at it like that.
degrees, they're giving you that line. If you cross it like that with your A and B, you end up with that.
Okay, but the question is, if their line and all they're telling you is 90 degrees though, because that's all they gave us at Nationals,
Yes.
is if your line is a 90 degree and you go back on it, what's your change? None. There's no angle
But you
there.
have
Well, is
you
it
gotta
a
do
line
it.
or is it a line?
Well, that's what I'm
that
saying.
No,
It's
you
gonna be-
still have an angle. It's that.
But look, there's what is the angle between the set
Yes.
direction and the
Because
line
it-
A to B, A and B.
Right.
A and B only creates a line, it doesn't actually create a direction.
But you still
But-
add whatever would, you create, you have a line.
You're going.
You create another line based off of the angle that they have given you. So if this is 30,
Said
and
another
you-
way.
if you've gone 90, they give you an angle of 30, you add on a 30-degree line.
The idea is to change your
Well-
course of flight, the
I'm
greatest.
just saying, like, you can argue
Yes.
how that's.
They don't-
Well,
It's
I think
a
you
question
could-
just to be asked, because I don't think, I mean.
You can call it either way. You can say, hey, I'm giving you guys a task 10 is a 90-degree line. It's an angle. Then you do make that 90-degree line and
And
say, hey,
for-
you need a heading of 90 degrees and angle off of that. So if you are headed on a 350, you're going to go straight across that.
you're also
So
still,
there's a straight 90
you're
degree.
trying to get
But
the
all you're
greatest,
doing is making a line.
yes.
That's what I'm saying, is because I remember getting confused when they first put this, I was like, what do you mean only 2? So I looked it up.
But
So I
if
would
you
say-
go this way, so if you make your A and B, and you head 90,
You get 0.
you've got a 0, which is a shit score.
Because you didn't change.
Because you did not change your direction. You're trying to create the greatest difference from the one that they've given you. So if you can get 270, great, do 270.
Right.
Because then you have a one.
That's a,
I'm not sure.
For,
I'm
think
gonna
it's
clarify.
I will stand by that 100%.
yeah, 'cause
A
you're.
line and a line segment are
Because
two
no
completely
matter
different
what-
things, Jimmy.
That doesn't have anything to do with anything.
I mean,
He's
it
saying
does,
if
because
it's
we're
a
only
line,
drawing a
then you're
line.
making a different angle from the line, because AB is a set line like
You
a
guys
line.
are interchanging angle direction, as in orientation of a compass, with angle that you've changed your direction, but as in anywhere from 0 to 180 being the change in direction to go the opposite way.
Yeah, I think, so again, back to this, like, you're creating A and B,
And you're.
you have a line,
That's best.
they have given you a C of 90 degrees, so wherever that is, wherever your B is, 90 degrees, like, this is still 0, right? Is that tracking? Like, look at your compass, if you, what's the opposite of 30?
I get that, but this is not, I mean, an elbow and an angle are 2 different tasks.
Yeah,
Like,
one's
you're
the
you're
base
turning
angle,
one
one's the
into an
lowest.
elbow.
Yes, so an angle, they give you a C. An elbow, you get to set your own C.
Yep.
Or it's determined by you.
Kinda.
No, it is.
I know, they're just giving, all they gave us there was a 90 degree.
For an
They're not
angle.
giving you a point anywhere, like so you're not actually
Right.
creating a point for the change.
No.
You're not creating which one's where the point is.
You're creating an angle.
You're creating a line as
We
compared
pull
to
up
another
the
line.
task sheet.
It actually doesn't pull up on there. I didn't try and
The angle
Okay.
on this.
So, there,
it won't pull up.
okay, watching, there's lots of videos up there, and I'm telling you, I watched one from Junior Worlds. Don Bareford called it. Don Bareford is one of
We
the
have time to
top
pull that up.
pilots. Huh? What?
We have time to pull
I
that
don't
up.
know why it doesn't pull up.
Yeah. There.
It's the wrong.
And the way that the ED there called it was they had a task here. You set your A here. They set a 120 angle here, and he said your B, no matter how you flew it, had to be the greatest here, and then you would set your B, and that would be your angle there. So I was saying you would set your A starting off one task. Easiest way I think see this.
I mean, that's not how nationals called it. That's what.
And that's the
So
point,
there
you
could be a
can call it
difference, but I'm just trying to
differently,
say the
but
easiest
what's
way-
consistent is 2
Yes.
points, making a
2
line,
points.
and the biggest difference
And the
from
direction
it
off
is
of
score.
it.
Yeah.
And in reality, the only place that we have talked about that you could probably get a 180 shift is here.
We did it in the long game. They told me that it wasn't possible, and they 100% did last year.
So, alright. That's, obviously, there's confusion on it. Or it can be hard to understand, I should say.
That's where you ask
I mean,
clarifying questions
yeah.
in briefing.
Well,
And they say, look at it.
this is the kind of stuff that they are not gonna necessarily
That's
go
right,
over
they're
in a
not gonna
briefing.
take time because-
Yeah,
Like
that one
you
you're-
could maybe ask a clarifying question if you wanted to of what are they viewing as the best result for that task? They might answer you, they might probably not.
They could
Like-
just say the greatest angle.
Yeah,
I
they're
know
gonna
they- I know they
gonna
have-
say
I
whatever
know
the
they
greatest
even-
change is
I know they
based off
changed.
the rules.
They changed the angle in briefing for us.
Which-
Because the
which-
wind lines changed.
They can do.
I know, that's what I'm.
Alright,
No.
Did you get any of that, or is it
I
still?
did. I'm not going to the
Okay.
talking website that's not even done.
Um,
It helps.
So,
So elbow 3 points, angle 2 points
yes,
off of a set line.
but you're always trying to create a change in direction.
I guess that's-
And an angle, you're just looking
Biggest
for the
change.
biggest
Yes.
angle difference.
So,
Both of them
Depends on
would
the
be.
line technically and
how would you do that? Would it be like the judge declared goals where?
So
Sometimes it could be, so like they might give you a task sheet for like an elbow, say, and
First one is thank you.
Would it
the-
refer back to a prior count?
yes, so your point A, they might say it's this judge declared goal. So whenever you make a baggy drop, or even if you don't,
Close.
they actually may define it as whatever your result is for task 3 will be your A point. If you get a baggy in there, it is those coordinates. If you make a logger mark, it's the logger mark coordinates. So then you have to go fly, say 5K away, and create your B, and now you need to try and fly back to create your C point.
That's for tough.
That would be an elbow.
Okay. And how would they define B?
So that
B-
could also be a
Where are you
second
gonna
task.
be after 10
A
minutes
certain
or
time or
something?
distance from A.
Yeah.
B could be
It's always defined in the task sheet.
like this
So-
could be task 1, this
It-
could be task 2, and then C is technically your elbow task. But these 2 points are defined by your first log.
So the idea to get the biggest change in the angle, you wanna be finding winds that are,
To get you closest to,
180.
yeah, 180.
Yeah.
so.
Which
And
is
you-
very
you
rare
find
to
a
do.
90
Usually
shift.
you're talking about 10 to 20 degrees
Yeah.
as your maximum with
Yeah,
normal conditions.
This
elsewhere
is
in
the
world.
ideal. More than likely, you're gonna end up with
Right.
this.
Something.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a great score on most days where they call an elbow, because that's all anyone's getting.
There's a lot of times the wind lines are coning in, so you just fly further out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Or even,
Usually
like, it could be
just
30
keep going out
degrees
like
that.
is
Yeah.
big.
Yes.
Yeah, you get a
And
little change.
if it changes as you're going, you could be flying in a great angle direction, not declare yet, the wind changes and you go back to a way less favorable angle and you didn't declare yet, so you don't get the score until it's more of a straight line and then you fail.
Right, so, and this, like, it's good, depending on what the task data sheet, but these are almost always gonna be defined by either time or distance. So you're gonna be required to go a certain distance away from that point that you declared, or fly a certain number of minutes before you can declare or drop. Or maybe a maximum, so they don't wanna give you forever,
Right.
they wanna give you a restriction of, you get 10 minutes to do the best you can.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Probably, I think that was a lot of what mine was times like that. There's another similar task-ish, which is the land run, which is another one where you make 3 points. Those points, or some of those points, may be defined by the task sheet. So, again, you're trying to make an A, a B, and a C, but this time, with the land run, you're trying to create the biggest triangle you can. So, if this is your point A, you have to fly over here, you make your B, and fly as far as you can over here, that creates your C, and then that closes your triangle. The biggest one is the best. Sometimes you'll end up with triangles that are like that. Sometimes you end up with triangles like that. It's just whatever area you
So
end
biggest
up
area.
covering. Yeah. Because so like in this instance, this is a much better score because I'm just covering more square footage than what I've done here.
Fastest speed you go.
Yes, generally that's it. That's the game with the land run is they're gonna call that whenever there's fast uppers typically. So you'll make your A, and then maybe so this one would probably be more like this because you'll take advantage of whatever slow winds are. Probably try to go this way and then haul ass that way.
Yeah, the last one we called was
A and B were other tasks, basically, so then you just basically had to make your C after your
Right.
final target.
That's about fuel management, a lot of that final land run. how
But
far
fuel
you
and
go.
time because a lot of times that'll almost always be your last task.
Time out.
I won't say always, but that's usually where they're gonna put it because they know that everyone's just
Fly it to the end of the
hauling
map.
ass. And you're gonna run out as much time and as much map as you have to get as much space.
Oh, well, important lesson learned. You can, as long as all of your marks are valid within the contest area, it is perfectly acceptable to fly off the map to get a safe landing.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
How far did you go?
The next city in Texas,
Yeah.
whatever Longview, past Longview.
That's
What's the
like
next
5 or 6
major
miles.
intersection that?
Any questions on land run? Yeah, you can fly outside of the area once you're done.
Yeah,
You're good.
but you can't make marks off the map.
Yes.
Okay, well,
But that doesn't necessarily mean PZs.
Here.
correct.
So PZs are also, like, if you make a mark in a PZ, that will usually be declared as an invalid
Sure.
mark. And so you've now lost that score.
With the kind of winds that we've got, could do.
One of the other,
Most places you
Easy
could.
isn't just for like a touchdown, then you
The
should
greatest altitude change
do like
that.
it depends, like a red one has altitude, so if you're inside that PZ,
Oh, okay, got it.
then, or if you're in the blue PZ, so you're above whatever that
You could
is,
ride- you
Well,
could
and
ride
you've
it
made the
easy.
mark there, that's also
Doesn't
not
matter
valid.
what
They take you back at Boston.
But if
Ah.
it was like
Down
a
is down
landing
in
PZ, like
descent.
you can put a point in the air.
Yes, yeah. If it was a yellow PZ, you'd be fine. One of the other weird tasks that sort of trip people up is the 3D task. There can be a lot of varieties of that, so one could just be your standard donut.
Which was called in February.
Yeah. So with that, you'll fly into it, and then your goal is to stay inside the donut for as long as possible.
That's a
Well, some-
simple thing.
Some of them are distance in, some are, can be time in.
that in the way,
Right?
okay, or
Not
Yes,
anymore.
generally, it's, I think, with the way it's worded, it's usually, the careers will achieve the greatest distance.
Okay.
It'll almost always say, I think, track points, yeah. Result is the accumulated horizontal distance between valid track points in the set airspace. So if you just stay here the whole time, that's not really that great. Unless they specify that it's time-based.
No, I think that she's right. That's what does the test like they got.
Find a way in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you did a swirl like that, you're gonna kill it. But also, don't get so carried away in chasing after winning this task that now you've spent all your fuel and you can't go do anything else. Because with these ones will often be put in the middle or the beginning because you kind of have to make that gamble to, like, how much am I going to use to do this and I still have something else to do.
It might take you off your line to get
Yes.
everything else.
Typically do a marker drop when you enter into the area.
For this one, it's usually they just take track points. So once you've entered, they're going to track everything inside there. You will almost always hear the question, are multiple entrances and exits allowed when a donut task is called? Because if you fly in and you fly out, if the task sheet says you get one exit, one entrance, then you're done.
Even if you get back in and stay in.
So
Yeah.
in February, in Watch Me Fly, you can go to the February's task sheet. It's the first task, and it's a 3D shape, and it's basically this, and you can mark it and read all those rules because it has the distance of like this inner hole, and then the distance to the outer hole.
Nice. I get screwed up and entered the middle one first. We get the shift up. Like 5 meters.
Oftentimes, the way that this is going to be defined for you, say again.
So you put it,
Oftentimes they'll give you the option of, they're going to give you the coordinates, which is like your center point, and then they'll say a radius of 2 and a radius of 4, and that defines your donut. But this area doesn't count, and this area doesn't count. It's just inside between those bands.
It counts if you go out in the middle.
Yes.
Yes.
It counts. It doesn't.
It counts against you. If you go straight through.
That counts as exiting.
So like if you went in here.
Right.
Most of the time they're gonna.
That's an out.
Most of the time they allow you to go in and out. It's
Really?
rare.
Sometimes.
I feel like
This
it's more
specific
rare
one
that
was
they
not. It
don't
was
than
in
they
and out.
do.
Well, we've always called once you exit.
It's a risk task,
So it's usually
because
how
it's
they
fuel
can help
management,
you
it's
with it as
also,
well.
she said talking about
With
running
that
out your
one,
line,
Where it's
and
With the wedding
doing
cake.
one
with
task
the
two,
wedding cake, which
and
we're
then
about to
give
go into, there definitely is.
Forego
With
task
this one,
three,
I
to make sure
don't
I win
think it
task
usually
two.
actually
So
has
or
a
do I want
200 meters and 800.
I mean, they
an
could.
average score.
Yeah.
of
Could.
two and
Okay,
It could be a
so what-
cylinder, a whole
it's a
cylinder.
number
Say it's in the
Yeah.
middle or at the end, and you decide that you are gonna land, like you're ready to land, and you're just trying to make like a last ditch effort through that one. Is it okay to land on the ground, like under it, and how do they calculate that, or do they just
That-
like?
That would be a good question to ask during the briefing, which is because that question has been asked and I've heard it before. Like if I land inside the area, does that still count? Because they could say no, and
Because you didn't exit.
yes, because you didn't properly exit.
Yeah, I would say without clarifying the ED saying otherwise, I would
Yeah.
assume it's a no result because you didn't exit.
Yeah, ground
Yes.
contact is a.
Actually,
competition
no, I'd say
landing.
if you didn't clarify, it would be a result. All that says is distance within. It does not say distance like from point A to exit. There's no entrance and exit even listed, so if you didn't clarify,
Time within.
then I would just argue that your landing,
land
your
it,
landing
that's
creates
it.
your final point.
I'm gonna say if that
don't
gets
ask
called at
that
nationals, I'm not landing in the shape.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's distance, so your distance is gonna
It's not
stop
ideal to
when you
land inside the shape anyways
that's a
because you're gonna
$100
cut
question.
your
Oh.
potential distance short.
Yeah.
There are also newer rules about do not land close to an MMA.
Oh,
So
that's
that,
sort of always been there, but I think they
Yeah, yeah.
clarified that.
so it might fall into that kind of category. And if you have other balloons coming in to be in that area, you probably want
Yes.
to.
Unless given permission or something like that.
They just
Any-
set it up in the scoring
So,
program and it looks at.
That's the end of your competition when you land,
It is, set your points.
no matter what.
Oh wait, no, I did that backwards. I'm not drawing airspace, I'm drawing a cake.
What could be that?
Mark
It could, but it'd be really weird to do it that way.
It could.
Marker area.
The score.
Measured marking area, I think is what it is. But it's the area that the tape measure goes, like,
How
Alright,
far around
so-
or something, so they don't want balloons in that area.
Same thing, but now with this one, we're getting a horizontal view because that sort of makes the most sense for the birthday cake. So this is a vertical view, horizontal. So you get your point. It may be defined by you or the event director. Your job is to still spend as much time as you can in here, but you get extra points, as long as the task sheet says so, for being in these different areas. So you get, for every track point you have in here, you get 1 track point. But now for every track point in the ×2, you get 2 track points. And then 3 points. So your most ideal flight is something like that, where you go into the higher point areas as quickly as possible without leaving the other one, because if you bust out of it, you're losing points in the process of getting to there.
Those are altitude based, right?
Yes. So they'll give you bands usually. This is up to 1,500 feet, 2,000, 2,500, and those could be anything. That'll be defined on your task sheet.
It should be an example in the January task sheet from this year, but we got weathered out.
Okay, but you can at least read it. Any questions on that one?
On your app that you'd use, you do both of those in circles. Right?
Correct.
You just
Yeah, so I would draw a
circles.
ring.
Right.
So if it's, 1,500 feet, usually they have it saying like, this
Might be a
is
2K.
this could be 2K, this could be 1K, this could be 500.
Okay.
And then you would draw a ring on that. And then, for our sake with that, in the scoring on that ring, instead of calling it area, whichever, I would say 1,500 ring. And I would call that, so I know on that outer ring, I've got a 1,500 elevation from wherever it's set at. And the next one, just kind of whatever helps you understand what those mean.
Makes sense.
I usually draw it in whatever way I can't do it in my program on my task sheet. So if I can draw circles in my moving map, I'll draw a 3D shape on my task sheet so that I can see in my brain where I'm supposed to be at what elevation.
So they might set that elevation, back if we had a hard deck, they could say this bottom was 50. $5,800. And they could say that's the bottom of it, and then you're going up 1,500 feet from there.
I'm pretty sure this is a new task, but it goes back to what we were talking about. So 3D is track points. There's a task, an altitude profile task, which actually specifies the greatest time within a set airspace. So for that, they might, set a box in the air or whatever, and your job is just to sit in there. Doesn't matter
That's
how
what
much
you
you
can find
move.
dead space.
Yeah, if you can find 0 movement, then golden. So those are the weird tasks. Everything else is generally some weird variation on a judge-declared goal at the end of the day. You're either throwing more baggies or less baggies, or you can only throw in these areas and not that area. It's like you have race to areas. Those are maybe the only other weird one that's not that. So that's generally going to be like they're going to specify a shape or a line, and how fast can you get from this point to that point. And also actually how I've seen it called is, which actually David did in Austria, he gave 2 lines and you had to define what your time was going to be going through those 2 lines. And whoever got the closest to their estimate got the best score. So if you guessed, I'm gonna cross here in 10 minutes, and it took you 9 minutes, 50 seconds, you get a score of 10, and that's your difference.
How did you enter that? Is it like, instead of the easting,
they-
you put your time?
They'll have you do it so you have your easting and your northing boxes on the app, and they'll have you skip one, and then you just enter like 1000
Yeah.
for 10 minutes.
That's wild.
So clever ways to do different things.
So like
Your way of gambling?
race
Yeah.
race to an area, race to a line could also be like, this is a north line. They could tell you, you can have an individual launch point, you're gonna launch behind here, and then they give you another one. And then whoever crosses that first.
This sort of does the same exercises, the same skills that like a crack is supposed to, where you should know how fast you're going to be traveling over a set space and how long that should take you. So if you're it's 24K up there, then how long does it take you to cross 1K? And you have to do the math to figure that out. But also you have to figure out, because you're not going straight across generally, you're probably cutting through it at some point. So now, all right, how long does it take me to get from there to there? Which is where those measuring tools are handy, because then you can click, I think I'm gonna enter here, I'll exit here. How far is that? How long is that with that speed?
Did you make them declare that before they left the ground, or when they were already in here? Like kind of like a fly-on sort of thing, remember?
I think it was before takeoff.
So another
I
thing
mean,
for
not-
like
you-
weird
not
things
you
on
just figure out the
fast calling,
distance
so a
and-
lot of things like you might get used to, like we've said,
Yeah.
normal max
Before
distance double
takeoff.
drops.
Mhm.
You know, a max distance double drop could be defined by, 2 triangles and like the X there. You get it here, here, or sometimes they go like this rather. Because they'll do a minimum this way. That way it's harder to get the minimum. But like in February, he made it to where it was a mark over here on this road, but then it's over here on this target. So you actually drop one, and you could get a score here. Or you could drop both of your markers here, or drop both of your markers here, or you could drop one here, one here. If you're a
That
gambler.
would be a maximum and a minimum.
Yeah, so from here to here was 2,700, I don't remember what I got, meters in between.
You're like, I don't know if I got that, I did.
I did it, I gambled, I made it, but smart thing is, you'd probably just try to hit one.
Yeah, if you're baggy thrower.
I was just gonna say, once you get used to the tasks, then you'll see various combinations of tasks. So you might have a minimum distance double drop, and a separate task on the task sheet somewhere else has the same exact coordinates for a judge declared goal.
Yeah.
So you might be throwing yellow, white, yellow as you cross that one
Yeah, like this, you
area.
could do, yellow.
Then when the other sort of variation of that is, instead of having your minimum and max at the same area, there might be 2 separate tasks that are mentioned elsewhere in the task sheet, and each of those is a part of your minimum maximum, which is a separate task down further on the task sheet.
Yeah, that's, so kind of similar to the task sheet that I was showing you just in Aussie, where he had the triangle areas, and then the 2 circles, like, the areas that you have to make a mark in could be anything. It's just whatever the task sheet says.
Well, and I think you guys talked about it, but at Nationals, you guys had a box, kinda.
It was the shape of
that,
Texas.
And their max distance.
Is that what it was?
Here,
That's Texas.
and then dropping here, or, and
That one was hard, cause they didn't give us coordinates for, like, you had to like look at the map and then like figure out where the points were.
But there's a lot of different variances. We're all open to answer anything about task sheets outside of briefing or after the flight.
Check out old task sheets, because that'll give you an idea of what people call event directors. You'll hear people say that event directors have specific styles because they like calling certain tasks. So like, Bill Clemens in Iowa, he, like what Shane was talking about, and Natasha, he really likes those tasks where it's an X, a triangle, and then you have to fly somewhere else, and you have another triangle there. So it makes both targets much more valuable because there's 1.5 targets or tasks at each area.
So I actually had called a task last April like this, but I made it so it was scoreable. So if you did get this and this, and you threw a baggie here, you got measured to the X for your max distance. If you happen to get both, and you threw one here, then that added to the center and that added to the center was going to be your max. But if you only got one, you still got a score. But if you got both, then you scored on all 4 with baggies. So it kind of opened up, and it just took playing around. Would you help me with that question?
I think that's a very good point, Derek, that a lot of it is, like I said before, about reading the rule book. But all that, when it comes to tasks, is a guideline for the event directors.
Yeah.
Event directors have a whole lot of creative privilege, I guess you could say.
As long as it's scoreable.
So paying attention in briefing is a very important thing, because I screwed up at nationals by not realizing that I could have just kept redeclaring my fly on in certain things. Like, my head went one way, and me thinking about it wrong cost me a lot of points. So a lot of it is just paying attention a lot and getting more comfortable in the ins and outs.
So on a separate topic, because I just happened to look down there at this, someone had brought up task boards, competition boards. Yes, I know you did.
You know a lot of someones.
I know a lot of everyone and someone, and so I use a piece of plexi, or polycarbonate, polyskid. Like, I just cut it to my uprights, put it on there. I don't have Velcro on it, but it is nice as like a little shelf. I can set stuff on it, set the task sheet on it. I can look. I have it. You can do whatever. They make the holders from RAM mounts and whatnot to hold your phones or hold your iPads. You can just find a little piece of plexiglass or whichever that will aid, as a little shelf. That might help organize, help keep you a little bit, if you just put a clipboard on it, look over and go, okay, that's what that is. So that may help a little bit rather than fondling. I used to fondle with paper and be like, what's that say?
Not getting in your basket.
Yeah. So, but there is different options, different things. You can get as high tech as this. Or I don't know if anybody has seen.
I actually don't entirely recommend how I set this one up. The board itself, I think, is fine. The attachment style is the part that I don't necessarily recommend because it's kind of a pain in the ass. It works great for not necessarily going anywhere. It holds really well, but after the flight, putting it anywhere is a pain in the ass. Because you have this big bulky thing that doesn't go anywhere. So the thought is that just add a Velcro to your bolster that stays there more permanently, and then have some Velcro on the back of the plexi, and then that attaches. And that's how a lot of people I've seen do it.
And or have a slit to strap it through.
Yeah, it's some way to attach it, to have a board and then have some way to attach that without everything being bulky is what I would try to get to.
Sometimes a clipboard can just maybe hold the task sheet, is sometimes nice. It's a hard surface to set on tough tanks.
I don't really take it off anymore.
So, depends on how fast I'm going. If I know it's going to be fast, mine, honestly, I just have a bungee that goes, so I cut notches in mine, and it slides basically into my uprights, into the upright poles. And then I have a bungee that goes around. And it sits there and stays there, but if I need to take it off, I pop the bungee off and I just sit it on the floor.
Part of this is, the way I've explained it is, I want to offload as much of the setup as I can before the flight. So I can put all of my electronics and everything, get that all set up. So I don't have to think about it whenever I'm trying to launch. I know that it's all there. Because this sits on the back of the truck, and I'm doing everything on there, and once I stand up, the crew brings that over and just plops it inside the basket, and we're good to go.
And sometimes there have been times you don't have time for that. You are basically standing the balloon up and going. But I say stand up like this, not like this. It's
Get ready for your long view.
this is 10 miles an hour and below. But no, any other questions, concerns? I am gonna probably get a form out, if you guys could fill that out. I don't know when, but I will get one sent out eventually, get some,
One of them was.
so I get some,
I think
reviews,
that one was.
feedback, things I need to work on, things that you felt was helpful. I would like to do this again. You know, maybe crew chief, get your guys' crew involved. And, you know, this will not be the one, you know, first and only education course. I plan on having more. So, hopefully this will entice more people to come learn about Top Gun, and I might open it, well, not might, I will open it to more. I think another beginner class I'll try to shoot for next January, before Top Gun actually starts, so we can try to potentially get new people back in and learned before. So, other than that, I appreciate all you guys coming. I hope you learned. I hope you got something out of it. And if you're going to the global, or you know, whatever we want to call it, candlestick.
You learn to declare more than once.
Huh?
You learn to declare more than
I
once.
mean,
If it says.
I'm
If it doesn't say, you can't.
Yeah.
See, like on the one that said how many
Clarify.
declarations.
Yeah.
Said two. Doesn't say it.
Yeah.
As long as you're still in the declaration.
And this is one of the first education classes I think I've gone to that the majority of the class is not sitting there the first part of the morning going, it's so pretty.